Hey Christ Church, thank you for joining us in another week as we dive into our study of the spiritual disciplines. I don't know about you, but have you ever noticed that the world is just a noisy place? Everywhere you go, there's noise coming, whether it's in your house or outside of your house, or in your car or outside of your car. There are hundreds of different things going on, and everybody's trying to get your attention, your phone, people, all around you in the world. There's always somebody there. There's always something happening, a distraction, something urgent that needs your attention, and it has to happen right now. Now think about your life for a second. How busy is your schedule? How loud is your life and the things that are going around you? Have you ever just wondered, when was the last time you were just quiet? When was the last time you found yourself in a quiet, silent place and you just stopped to catch your breath? Richard Foster in The Celebration of the Discipline said, "Superficiality is the curse of our age. The doctrine of instant satisfaction is a primarily spiritual problem. The desperate need today is not for a greater number of intelligent people or gifted people, but for deep people." The classic disciplines of the spiritual life call us to move beyond surface living into depths. They invite us to explore the inner caverns of the spiritual realm. They urge us to be an answer to a hollow world. To grow in this way, to be an answer to superficiality, it does not happen when the world is loud and busy and go, go, go. It requires moments of stillness, of quiet, of aloneness, where we just get to press pause and think about life. The goal of creating a healthy spiritual life is to carve out moments of time in our life where we turn aside from everything else and we shift our attention to God and we just spend time in His presence. Because it is in the presence of Jesus Christ where our souls grow and our character, our values are developed, and our well-being is nurtured. I love what the psalmist says in Psalm 46, 1-3. It says, "God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling." I love this picture. You can continue to read through the chapter, and it's all of these things that are happening in the world and all of these things that are going wrong. But the picture the psalmist gives us is God is our refuge and our strength. God is our safe place, our shelter. He covers us in His protection. He's the place we can turn to catch our breath, that we can step out of the storm of life for a minute, take a deep breath, and release the tension and the stress that life creates. In God, we get a place to kind of get our balance back, regain our footing, our stability, so that we have a centered foundation for how we do life. The psalmist says, God is our refuge in the storm. He's our protection when life gets dangerous. Even though it feels like the world around us is shaken and not as it should be, we do not have to fear. Even when it feels like the ground underneath us isn't quite stable, we aren't shaken. We're stable. Even when so much of life that used to be known becomes an unknown, we do not have to falter. Even when it feels like the foundations we've created for life are cracking around us, we don't have to give way. Even when our expectations for life become shattered, we don't have to be broken. Even when life feels discouraging and hope seems dim, we do not have to give up, because God is our shelter, our refuge, our strength. He's with us when we face trouble. He's with us when we are afraid. He's with us when life feels unstable, and we can trust in Him. We can count on Him, find our strength in Him, the courage that we need to show up and just do the work that life requires of us. We find in the presence of God. He gives us that ability to be tough and resilient and dig in our heels and say, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to continue to fight another day. He gives us that determination that we need that sees us through the other side. Even when we are lost in the middle, God sees us through to the other side. So there's this interesting word that pops up in the Psalms. It actually pops up a couple of times in this chapter. It's Selah. And many of the Hebrew scholars think that this most likely means pause. So pause, let that sink in for a second. Pause, take a minute to really think about what's being said. If this is who God is, our refuge and our strength, a present help in times of trouble, is this really the God that I know? Is this really the God that I depend on for life? When the world seems crazy, when things feel like they're falling apart, and do I have this sense of trust that God is still in control, even when I feel out of control? So the purpose of spiritual disciplines are to help us know God better, to think about God in the kind of way that allows our inner sense of self to grow with Him, and to really spend time pausing and thinking about who God is. We need time alone with Him. We need a pause button. We need that quiet time where the distractions and the noisiness and the busyness of life are put on hold, and we just get to turn to the presence of God. Charles Swindoll tells us in his book, So You Want to Be Like Christ, that when we are still, God will reveal. That the Spirit of God reveals Himself when we shut out the loud and busy distractions, close our mouths for a protracted period of time, and just listen. He says, alone and quiet in that place of stillness and solitude, where we protect and guard our hearts with all diligence from the clamor of a world that would pollute it, God will lead us to springs of life bubbling from somewhere deep within. You know, the world is loud and it's busy, and if we aren't careful, we can't even hear God's direction because of the loudness, the busyness, and the distractions. Swindoll says, in our chatty world, silence helps keep our minds and hearts anchored in the future world and allows us to speak from there a creative and recreative world to the present world. He says, in solitude, the only person needing anything is you, and you've brought your need to God's inexhaustible supply. Think about that for a second. When I'm done, God isn't. When I've depleted myself, God still has an inexhaustible supply of goodness and grace and mercy and strength to give us in those times of need. So Swindoll says solitude, thinking about it, is an investment, one that will make us richer in order to share that wealth with others. So some people don't like to be quiet, right? Because that's where your thoughts creep in, or the things you've been avoiding or the things you've been hiding from creep in, and you can't avoid them. So what do you do in quiet alone time? How do you use that for productive good? Part of pausing is saying, I cannot run from myself anymore. I will always catch up to myself, because you know the saying, wherever I go, there I am still. I go with myself wherever I run. So part of it is just confronting the reality of who we are and what we're hiding from, who I am and what I've been avoiding. And instead of running and distracting and keeping myself so busy that I'm just too exhausted to do anything else, I create moments in my life to pause and reflect and just think about who I am, who God is, and who He's created me to be. So when we have this time of alone and quiet, here's Swindoll's recommendation. He says we have to listen. When we're quiet, when we're alone from everything else, we have to listen. Because the Spirit of God, he says, reveals Himself when we shut out all of the busyness, the loudness, and the distractions. And in that quiet where we're just listening, I don't expect God's going to show up in a big fiery burning bush and tell me, hey, Katie, I've been trying to get your attention, right? That's not what I'm listening for. But I am listening for God to direct my heart and my thoughts in a healthy way. I am waiting expectantly for God to direct me in the way that I should go. I do expect God to have a work in my heart, in my mind, in who I am and who He's created me to be. And a lot of times that comes with clarity, because my mind gets messy, my thoughts get murky, my stress is so high it overwhelms everything else, and I can't see the goodness of the future for the lostness of right now. I listen because I need the light of God to shine in the dark places of our life. I need Him to direct my thoughts back to the right places. I need Him to help me process through life that we struggle through and to hear the things that we've been missing. So often the reminder I need is just a small whisper from God, I'm your strength and your refuge, a very present help in times of trouble. The verse that I'm contemplating right now, I've got it on my board, is be strong and courageous and do the work, right? I have work that God's given me to do, and I can focus on that, knowing that He is still in control of everything else. But here's the thing that Swindoll reminds us. God isn't going to adjust His agenda to fit mine. I have to adjust my life to fit the agenda of God. And when I do that, when I turn to Him in that way, He will clarify our thoughts, direct our hearts, and reconnect us to Him. So our silent time, our solitude, we listen for the direction of God. And then Swindoll also says, preserve what you discover. If you're reading, if you're quiet, if you're just there in the presence of God, have a journal that you can write things down in. Record your experiences, record the ideas, the reflections. These don't have to be published for anybody else. It's between you and God. It's not an essay contest. Nobody's going to grade you at the end on grammar and correct punctuation. It's just a place for you to capture your experience with God, to preserve what you're learning, to write down the things that come to mind. And again, it doesn't even have to be profound, just write. In that place of silence and solitude, as God is directing your heart and your thoughts, write. It's the process that's creating of thinking with God, not the product that you produce at the end. It's a tool to help you think through and that clarity and recording your heart and your ideas and who God is. To do that, it requires intention. It requires saying no to some things so you can say yes to others. It requires turning away from loud and busy, whether it's turning off your phone or turning off the TV or the iPad or the laptop. It's stepping away from even the people you love to give yourself that space and time to just spend with God in silence and solitude. They're best friends. They like being together. They like that time where in quiet and aloneness, you have time to not be distracted by anything else and just be with God. So let me give you a couple tools on how to do that. We know what we want to do. We know what we're going to do when we're there, but how do we create that time in our schedule? Psychology Today gives us 5 tips to carve out quiet time from the chaotic, the busyness of life. And the first one is you have to plan for it. The truth is, I don't know how your calendar works, but things don't just magically happen on my calendar. I have to create a plan for it. And so when it comes to quiet time, make a plan in your schedule where you give yourself time every single day carved out just to be quiet and alone. It doesn't have to be an hour, 2 hours. Start with 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, where you can carve it out. Plan for it on your schedule. But then the second idea is you also have to make it a priority, right? Like there are things that are a priority in our life. You have to get dressed and ready for work every day. You got to eat food, right? There are things that you just make a priority so you make time for. Quiet time, silence and solitude, it's not a luxury. It's not extra added on to everything else. It is a core part of caring for your soul and growing in your relationship to God. But then if you are going to make a plan for it, make it a priority, you got to teach other people about it. Because when you say to people, hey, I'm going to take 10 minutes of quiet, they're going to be like, why? Right? Like this is an opportunity to say, why am I taking quiet time? Why is this important? With your family, model it for the people that you're doing life with. It's a priority because I want to grow in my relationship with God. I want to be in a place where He can influence me and grow my heart and my mind and my soul. One of my favorite suggestions that this article gave was use the in-between spaces. We all have in-between spaces in our life, right? I'm from here to there. I'm dropping the kids off at school. I'm driving to work. I have an appointment to be at. I'm on my way to the grocery store. Whatever your in-between time looks like, use it productively. So if you have time that you're driving in the car from here to there, what if that became your quiet time? If you have waiting time, right? You're waiting for the kids to show up. You're waiting at a doctor's appointment. You're waiting for your client to to appear. Use that in between time productively without the noise. Look at your day. Where's the space in between that you can use productively? And then the last suggestion was create one daily ritual that promotes quiet in your life. Say a prayer. Find quiet time, right? Go for a walk. What's the ritual? Maybe you like to get up early and have coffee. Get up 15 minutes earlier. Have that time alone where it partners with something that you're already doing to create the time alone and quiet. It matters for your quality of soul. It matters for your right now well-being. It matters for the man or woman that God is creating for you to be. It is a healthy practice. It's healthy for your mind. It's healthy for your body. It's healthy for your soul. We need the times of quiet and solitude to reconnect to the wonder and the majesty of our awesome God. We need time where we just press pause on the crazy, busy chaoticness of everyday life, where we can wait expectantly for God to see who He is and what He's going to do. Ryan Holiday said that stillness is to be a person who is steady while the world spins around you, to act without frenzy. And I love that because we know what it's like to be the person whose life is spinning out of control. We know what it's like to act in frenzied ways and to feel like we don't know what to do and we're frantic and there's tension. But what if we said, I want to be a person that is still. I want to be a person who knows how to press pause at the appropriate time, who has time with God in quiet and solitude, where He can guide my heart, where He can encourage my mind, strengthen our souls, and He can give us that stillness we need to stand steady, whole, and filled with hope to be exactly who He's created us to be in this crazy, loud, busy, noisy, beautiful, wonderful world. Dear Father, I pray that you would help us. I pray that the idea of silence and solitude would take root in our hearts and we would find time to connect with you in these ways. I pray, Father, as we connect with you, you would remind us what a good, faithful, and awesome God that you are. I pray that you would strengthen our hearts, encourage our minds, give us a fierceness of spirit, Father, to be the men and women that you've created us to be. Help us to stand steady while the world spins around us because we find our rest, our stillness, our wholeness in you. We pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless.